Well, let's get some more detail on the votes. And the city of Norwich was the only place in the three counties which voted to remain in the EU. 56% of voters backed Remain, while in Great Yarmouth, voters delivered a resounding vote for Brexit. 71% was the third highest in the region. In Suffolk, the county as a whole voted to leave by 57% to just under 43%. In a moment, Alex Dunlop on the divide between Norwich and Great Yarmouth. First, Richard Daniel in Suffolk.
On a day of turmoil, Ipswich waterfront was a picture of calm. This was the favoured location for photo ops during a bruising campaign. David Cameron addressed students here, while Boris Johnson and Michael Gove prompted a media scrum. The morning after the night before, two students collecting their exam results were taking stock. Both voted Remain.
We've just graduated now with the NHS job in mind, so it's a bit uncertain with our jobs, and it's a bit worrying in the long term about it.
Yeah, especially as Nigel Farage said that the money will be spent on the NHS, and he's also said this morning that that was a mistake to say that, and that it will not be spent on the NHS.
Charlie Jolly, also a student, was too young to vote, but if he'd been able to, he'd have voted out.
I feel it's probably best for the UK, to be fair. Because they were saying that we may go into recession from it, but we've always bounced back from it. We've always come back stronger.
What now? The question hanging in the air. Mark Willett is concerned the property market could take a hit.
I actually changed. I was out and I changed to in. I woke up this morning, I watched the news, I watched Cameron's speech, and I'm worried. I'm deeply worried.
Unsettling times too for regulars at this Portuguese cafe, among them Carla Oliveira, who's lived here for 11 years.
There's a lot of things going on now saying that we can apply for the citizen card to stay in the country, but then you've got people that have been here for less than 2 years. What's going to happen to them?
But others see this momentous vote as a momentous opportunity, including the small inshore fishing fleet at Felixstowe Ferry.
I'm just really hoping that it will filter down to the smaller communities, and the little boats here will actually be able to earn some money and actually go fishing. That's what that's what they're born to do. That's what they want to do.
The question now on everyone's lips: where will this result take us?
Welcome to Great Yarmouth, now officially one of the top 5 most Eurosceptic towns in the country, and the mood here is replicated along the East Coast. More than 7 out of 10 voters here want out of the EU.
I want England to be like England. I don't want to be ruled by German and French people.
I've got nothing against immigrants, but if there was to be the amount of thousands that were supposed to be coming, there wouldn't be no houses for them, there wouldn't be no places.
And I do work very hard, but I find that the place is not the same, and it never will be.
People here feel shortchanged, even abandoned, and in part they blame the European Union. And yet, just 20 miles away, Norwich is the only one out of 28 local councils across Norfolk, Suffolk and Essex to vote Remain. I went into the city centre to ask why.
Norwich is quite multicultural, and it's quite tolerant, and it's quite left-leaning, and it's a creative place.
I live at Swaffham, and all the shops are shut in, and it's just getting like a ghost town.
So do you think that's why people feel more aggrieved?
Possibly so, yeah.
Why do you think Norwich voted Remain, and yet every district around Norwich voted out?
I think we are still more radical. There's the Greens, there's Labour, and we've got a city council that's always been radical, haven't we?
The young people voted to stay, and people over 60 decided that they can't.
With its research park and university, the city has strong European links. Manuela Martino is Italian and lives in Norwich. Today, she's in shock. Why do you think Norwich voted to Remain?
Oh, it's a cultural issue, entirely cultural issue. There's a higher level of education in Norwich. There's a big concentration of people with degrees and higher degrees.
But Norfolk has now made up its mind. Almost 6 out of 10 people in the county have voted to leave the European Union. Alex Dunlop, BBC Look East, Great Yarmouth.
A great deal was made during the referendum campaign about the impact of Brexit on the region's economy. So what is being said by the business community today?
Let's get some thoughts from Luke Morris, a business advisor and campaigner for Vote Leave, and our business correspondent, Richard Bond. What's the reaction been here, Richard, so far?
Well, I think it's been a day where many of the big firms which wanted us to stay in the EU and warned of adverse consequences if we left have been saying some soothing things about the UK, you know, how it's business as usual, how they're committed to the UK, how the vote hasn't made any difference to that. They've been using quite pragmatic language, really. Aviva, the insurer, which has a large presence here in Norwich, put out a statement saying that it wanted us to stay in the EU. It said today it considered the vote will have no significant operational impact on the company, which is a change in tone. But not everyone is so positive. Ryanair, the biggest airline at Stansted, said that as things stand, it won't make any additional investment in the UK. It won't get any smaller at Stansted, it says. It's just opened a new training centre there. But basically it's saying that future investment will go possibly abroad.
And Luke, I mean, you got the vote that you wanted, but are you worried at all that there will be a scaling back of investment in businesses in this region?
Well, it came as a surprise, and it's a momentous day, isn't it? But I think we're now moving from a period of rhetoric, and I think the Ryanair thing is rhetoric, to a period of reality. And I think we'll see that in business terms, this was never really, to my mind, about in and out. In trade terms, it was about the realpolitik of the need to agree deals and make arrangements. And I think we'll start to see that happening. Remember, we're only 24 hours away from the poll being taken. I think as the dust settles, we'll start to see the reality come through, which is business is about providing good goods or services. It's not so much about the rhetoric.
There was rhetoric on both sides, though, and that would have been something which confused most people when lots of people still decided on the day.
Yeah, and I think this is a very fair criticism of the whole process and the business that we've been through.
Good. Well, thank you very much, both of you, for being with us.
It was in January 2013 that David Cameron fired the starting gun on the EU referendum when the Conservatives were coming under pressure from UKIP. He said then that if his party won the election in 2015, British people would be given an in-out choice.
Well, Mr Cameron announced the date of the referendum in February, and since then we've seen a succession of battle buses, TV debates and flying visits on both sides. Lee Milner has been looking back at the highlights.
Well, it's a good job they've got a TARDIS here at Look East, because before I show you the highlights of this referendum, let me take you back to 1975, when the country's first ever nationwide referendum led to a very different result. In the run-up to the referendum, the Prime Minister Edward Heath announced that the government had decided to recommend a yes vote.
The future is yours. Don't let them take it from you. Stay in Europe.
67% of British voters backed the Labour government's campaign to stay. So that was 1975, but how does this campaign compare, and what were the highlights? Well, I've landed in Look East Gallery. It's 2016, and I can show you by just pressing this button. When the Prime Minister called the referendum on the 20th of February, Essex MPs John Whittingdale and Priti Patel were first out of the starting blocks for the Leave campaign. But it wasn't long before David Cameron made the rounds here in the East. First stop, Ipswich.
This is a really massive decision for our country.
Over at Stansted, the Chancellor was giving the warning we've heard time and time again.
Those are jobs, and that is investment that would be at risk if we left the EU.
Meanwhile, Look East took the temperature in Wisbech.
Close the bloody borders, get out of Europe. Almost definitely in.
Back in Norwich, the debate became fractious, with Conservative MPs arguing amongst themselves.
They have nothing to offer.
Until a local fisherman had to put them right.
I don't know what world you live in, my dear.
Last week, BBC Look East had the Prime Minister in the hot seat.
From all I've seen as Prime Minister over the last 6 years, leaving would be a big, big mistake.
But it was Boris Johnson who got his hands dirty in the end when it came to campaigning on the coast.
They'd be able to take back control of the huge quantities of fish that are in British waters, and it would be good for the whole coastal communities and their economy.
So there you have it. The campaign may have only lasted 4 months, but the impact could last light years. Lee Milner, BBC Look East.
Well, let's get some final thoughts now from our political correspondent, Andrew Sinclair. And from what we've heard tonight, it seems as if immigration was one of those main reasons why so many people voted to leave, Andrew.
Yeah, I was talking to a senior member of the Remain campaign this afternoon who said to me, we lost it on immigration, we didn't have a proper answer. And I have to say, you only had to go out campaigning, you only had to go to the public meetings, you only had to watch Look East to hear how concerned people were about this issue. But I think there's something else going on as well. A number of campaigners have told me that they met a lot of people who still haven't got over the recession, who are still in debt, haven't had a proper pay rise, and they've lost faith in politicians. They're angry with the political establishment and they didn't want to listen. And whoever forms this new Brexit government is going to have to address those two issues.
The campaign was very divisive. What are you sensing about the mood among our MPs now? They have to get on and make this work?
Yes, there is a lot of talk today about making up, but this is a debate which has bitterly divided the Conservative Party. You'll remember